Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the North Chapel on this Sunday, July 24th. My name is Richard Waddell, and I'm coordinating the service this morning. We're happy to have all of you with us this day. There are several announcements in the order of service for you to read and take notice of. And Joanne asked me to make an announcement that the food shelf is in great need of donations. So anything that you might be able to provide for the food shelf here in Woodstock would be most welcome. Our minister, the Reverend Leon Dunkley, is taking 2 much-needed weeks off. And today we're very happy to have with us James Marmar, who will be giving the reflection today. And you can read his full bio in the order of service, but I'll just briefly say that James moved to Vermont in 1969 after graduating from the Albany College of Pharmacy. He's been a member of Shir Shalom here in Woodstock, and he has been associated with Dismas House starting in 2015, and he joined the local Hartford board and continues that through today. Are there any other announcements from anyone? Okay. The opening words are by Jonathan Robinson in his book titled From Big Questions. When I was in my early 20s, I spent a couple of hours each week volunteering at a retirement home. My spiritual teacher at the time required that I do volunteer work in order to have access to his teachings. Initially, I hated going. The place smelled bad. Many of the people were senile, sick, or in pain, and I didn't know what to say to them. Although they appreciated someone coming to talk with them, I also sensed that they felt uncomfortable being a charity case. Then I met V. V was 89 years young, blind as a bat, full of life and laughter, and always an adventure to be with. One day, her sparkling personality moved me to ask, what advice can you give a young person like me about how to live a successful life? What she said both touched me and made me laugh. Don't take life so seriously. After all, it's not permanent. From that day onward, I asked each elderly person at the retirement home the same question. Seeking their advice on how to live a successful life felt like philosophy. I began to enjoy my weekly visits. I started feeling like I was the charity case, and that they were to help me through sharing their accumulated life wisdom. I remember how sad I felt. I remember when V passed away a few months later. I remember that a tear rolled down my face, but with that tear, I could hear her gentle voice saying, don't take life so seriously. After all, it's not permanent. From time to time, her words still guide me back from the depths of seriousness to the shores of serenity.
morning. Good morning, gentle people of Woodstock. For those who don't know me, I am James Marmar. I've been kicking around Woodstock for a number of years. If you had ever come into the pharmacy, you probably have
Thank you.
seen the upper part of me anyway. Nobody can see the lower part, okay? It's against the law. But I survived my 20 years in Woodstock with great joy and compassion, and I was hoping that I maybe, as I like to say, we saved a few lives along the way, and I'm very grateful for doing that. Today, I have a little reflection. It's called, Does My Cup Really Runneth Over? It was very Shakespearean at that moment, so I thought it was kind of appropriate. This is the metaphor. Is it a life well lived? And who the heck is staring back at me in the mirror? For example, I always see the glass half full, okay? I know this has many connotations as my life has rolled out. Yes, is this a blessing or is this a curse? Seeing the glass half full. Just to give you an example of some fleeting moments of my life. At 18, my first car was a 1960 Edsel. I was already off on the wrong path, okay? Just started out magnificently. As a high school senior, I was the first in my class to be accepted to college and the first in my family to graduate college. I graduated college in 1969, that goes back a little bit. I passed, and the good news was, I passed my physical and became 1A for the draft. Vietnam history was on the move. My first job was a staff pharmacist at Mary Fletcher Hospital in Burlington. I didn't know a darn thing about hospital pharmacy. Nothing, zero. They hired me anyway, what can I tell you? It was very rare to have a pharmacist move up to Vermont. Vermont was, how do I put this? In the pucker bush, it was on the other side of the tracks, across the river, down the block. Nobody wanted to come to Vermont, but I made that choice, and of course, as they say, the rest is history. My first house had a no water supply and no heating system, but I bought it anyway. What did I know? I was a kid from the city. Didn't know about living in the rural country and what it portended. I told myself I was never gonna have children. Then Meadow was born March 21st, 1975. And Zach followed after. Animals were never in my life, never. Until I was intimate with dogs, cats, sheep, goats, pigs, horses, iguanas, tarantulas. If you name it, I probably had one or more within our family group. At some point in my life, I asked my question, what's an entrepreneur? Well, I found out pretty quickly. In 1980, I maxed out my credit card, got a small business loan, and purchased Cambridge Pharmacy in 1980. Okay? I didn't know a darn thing about being an entrepreneur. But for some reason, I had to do it. I just had to do it. Later on, we lived in Cambridge. You probably have had Boyden Farm steaks or Boyden wine. Well, they weren't doing that back then. They were just trying to stay in business milking cows. Moving on, I moved to Montana with horses and sheep with my wife Sandy and 3 children. In 1991, sold my pharmacy. I moved to Montana, didn't have a house, didn't have a job. Somehow it didn't seem to bother me, I don't know. Just headed out west. But like a boomerang child, I did come back, okay? I did return. And I met Rita McCaffrey, who lives in Weston, Vermont. Rita is the founder of Dismiss. Her and her husband, Frank McCaffrey, were the founders of Dismiss 30 plus years ago. Frank was a very well-known judge in Vermont. And when he retired, he became the drug judge. He became the drug and the drug court, the judge in the drug court. And he gave everybody a second chance. Nobody could fail, according to Frank. And he was an amazing individual. He passed just a few years ago. But Rita, who is, if you've ever met Rita McCaffrey, she is a force to be reckoned with. And Rita and I met up here, actually had lunch over at Bentley's, and she convinced me to join the board of Dismiss House. I didn't know anything about Dismiss House, but I did know that my son had interacted with the state apparatus and had been arrested. And I had seen my child dressed in orange, dressed in shackles, wearing shackles, coming down in the courthouse for his hearing. That's a sight that I hope none of you ever have to imagine, go through, vision. It's burned into my memory, okay? So that was my interaction with and never having gone to see the prison, but that was my interaction with what we call in our society an overwhelming thing to get things, well, to punish people for things that they may have done inappropriately, which is a whole nother speech, okay? So Rita convinced me to join the board. Hartford had just, after a long battle, had opened up a house. Now, Dismiss, you don't know what Dismiss is probably, because it's kind of on the down low. Nobody really knows about it, talks about it. But Dismiss House, there are now 5 of them. There's 5. There's one in Burlington, Winooski, 2 in Rutland, and 1 in Hartford. Dismiss House is the place where we want to take people who come out of jail, reconcile those individuals with society, and society with those individuals. Not a bad idea, is it? Nobody wants to be in prison to begin with, but whatever the circumstances were, many people have ended up there. When they come out of prison, some states just boot kick them out the door, give them $5 and they're on their way. And maybe they'll be back in a week or so, because they can't stand being on the outside. They have no support system. They're back in their environment that maybe created the situation to begin with. I don't know. But the involvement of having Dismiss, which was started by Father John Hickey in Tennessee, who wanted to interact college students with people coming out of prison. Now, I don't know why he wanted to do that, but he thought it was a great idea, and that idea has caught on. There are Dismiss houses throughout America, and we're lucky that we have 5 here in Vermont, okay? Now, reconciling prisoners with society and society with prisoners, it's not as easy as it sounds. You know, you're out the door, you go to Dismiss. First you're interviewed. You have to have the desire to want to go to a sober house. You could call it a sober house, where we don't allow people to drink or do drugs on the premises. And we have a money problem like you have. We're an NGO. We are competing with the Haven and with Listen and with the Vermont Food Bank and with this church, and the list goes on and on. People only have so much money. People only choose to do with their money in a specific, usually a laser type of form. And there was a time that in your junk mail you would get the request from the Easter seal people, from the breast people, from the pancreas people. You never know what you're going to get. And I, throughout my life, have been a sucker or a generous person, and I have always tried to donate something to many people. But I found out that it's probably better to donate, only have a handful of ideas that you want to donate to, okay? That really keeps you focused. So I've always tried to donate to battered women's facilities, Dismiss House, Vermont Food Bank. Those are my personal choices, okay? And whatever you do, I hope that you do share some of your accumulation with other NGOs. In the 30 years, we've helped thousands of prisoners coming out of jail. And what exactly does Dismiss do? First, they're interviewed. Like in Hartford, we have 10 beds. We can put up 10 people coming out of prison at a time. We interact with the Department of Corrections in Vermont. They pay us. They pay us to have a bed available that a person coming out of prison, prisoner coming out of jail, has a place to go. And this is another learning experience for these individuals, okay? They come out, they have to get a job. They have to attend dinner every night. Every night, part of our plan is to, or Father Hickey's plan was to, have a family dinner, because I believe when you're in prison, you sit down, scoop up your food as fast as you can, and leave. But at Dismiss House, people have to actually sit down every night and have dinner with all the other people in the house. Okay? Sometimes you have to adjust your job so that you can do that. But in the end, it works out. You know what that involves? That involves the community, because we have hundreds of volunteers who make and bring the meals every night, Monday through Friday. Meals are supplied by the community, by people who are willing to donate their time, their food, their money, to share with these individuals to reorientate them back into the culture that is not prison culture. So this seems to have worked out. This seems to have worked out. It's a slow, laborious process. It doesn't happen overnight. Like I said before, it's just not easy as it sounds. Every house has a board of usually 10 to 15 people, volunteers from the community. So there is 40 to 50 local board members in the 5 houses. And then there is an overseeing board, which I'm on all these boards, by the way. So I have plenty of meetings to attend to. And there's an overseeing board which sets up policy, hires and fires people accordingly. It's hard. It's hard work, and not everybody wants to do it. But you know what? The people that are there on the boards, I've met some tremendous people, become friends, and we're always in the hunt for people that want to share their time and their energy with our community at Dismiss House. And that's why I've come here today to talk about it and to say, does my cup runneth over? I don't know. Just to give you an example, next year, the Dismiss House in Hartford, every house has to raise money. They do it in very unique ways. Next April, at the Lebanon Opera House, mark this on your calendar, we're going to have a Piper Kerwin, who wrote Orange is the New Black. She's going to be a keynote speaker at a presentation at the Lebanon Opera House. So we've gone from having the usual potluck dinners and the formal dinners at the Hilton and the Inn, to now we're going to have a speaker at the Lebanon Opera House to raise a chunk of money. And this is what we do. We get money from the Department of Corrections, we get money from board members, we get money from the community. We have a website called dismissofvermont.org, and you can donate there. You can say, I want to be a cook. I want to come, next Wednesday, and I'm going to bring lasagna for 10 people. And you do it, okay? And you sit down and you talk with people who maybe you wouldn't normally have rubbed elbows with, okay? It's an interesting experience, okay? It gives you another view of life. And to many of these people, they succeed and they do not. Our recidivism rate is very high. People who come to Dismiss House and stay at least 3 months have only a 30% chance of going back to prison. And just for a note, you and me as taxpayers in Vermont are paying upwards of $70,000 a year for each person that's in the prison. $70,000. Okay. At Dismiss House, we have a bed, and we may see 3 or 4 people in a year use that one bed. The state gives us about $19,000 to help 4 people, versus $70,000 that only helps 1 person. Oh, actually, it doesn't even help them. It makes them serve their sentence out. So I just wanted to make you aware that there's no free lunch. There's no free lunch, of course, in our society, and we have to try to share what meager resources we have with the community. And the community has stepped up in every way to make Dismiss thrive. And look we've lasted over 30 years. So I think that's an amazing accomplishment, and I hope someday you can meet Rita McCaffrey. She's in her 80s now. She comes to the meetings. She is an amazing engine of energy, let's put it this way. So I wanted to share that with you. And if there's any questions, please ask me and I'll try and answer them. I figured we'd do this, answer the questions before it got really hot. Are there any questions about dismiss? Yes, sir.
How many individuals are housed there presently?
In Hartford, we average about 9. We have a report every month. About nine people. We have 10 beds, and so there's usually always somebody coming and somebody leaving. Okay, it's a continuous thing. But it's really good when you have a group of people that kind of come in a close time period, and they can develop kind of a community within the community. So about 10 people.
If a person chooses to go to this house,
Yes.
are they committed to a certain length of time?
Mm.
And they have to stay there?
No. It's the Department of Corrections gives them a whole litany of what they have to do after they leave prison. But if they come to dismiss house, we've had people that have come and stayed one day, couldn't hack it, and left. And then we've had people that have stayed a year before they were able to find, but they didn't want to leave. They needed that support that long. And they have made a successful transition. I think a person's working at King Arthur as a baker. So they have to all get jobs. This is not a free ride. They have to, and they pay monthly, but when they leave, they get that money back to help pay for an apartment. You know how hard it is to find apartments in Vermont? I think it's a little harder for someone else who's coming out of prison.
I have a couple questions.
Yes.
Where do people at Dismiss House come from? Is it only the state of Vermont, or is it regional?
Okay, it is the state of Vermont, and we do get federal prisoners also. We actually opened up, I said we had 2 houses in Rutland. The Department of Corrections 2 years ago banned us from having mixed men and women in the same house. And you can imagine they had issues somewhere along the line of men and women being in the same facility. So we had to stop accepting any woman for a couple of years. We did have a little fight with the DOC, and our answer was we opened up a woman's only house in Rutland. So we're the only provider that has a women's only house in the state of Vermont. It's in Rutland, and we're even getting women from the feds, the federal. They have to, they pay X number of dollars, whatever. But we are getting women from the federal prisons and from the Vermont prisons.
My other question was, what other support does Dismiss provide? Is it strictly a bed and meals, or is it counseling, or job placement services?
Okay, well, those are all things that we all need, of course. And we don't do counseling at the house, okay? However, things like HCRS, the state of Vermont connects connects to have the patients, to have our prisoners have counseling on an ongoing basis if that is part of their release plan. Okay. We try to help them in many ways that we can. Again, opportunities are unlimited as how much time you have to provide and assess all the help that people need. You know, I think the biggest help that we have is that the state wants everybody to have a house to move to. They want to have something over their head to live in. And you know what? That's really hard. That's really hard in this environment where there's such a shortage of housing for almost anybody that comes into the state now. So we're always talking with landlords, and we may eventually, Dismas may just buy some closed down, maybe like the Shady Lawn, or buy a motel or something, so that people can move on from the Dismas house and get on with their life. And I saw another hand over here. And people, they can have kids. Their kids come and visit them. We try to do that as much as possible. But as you can imagine, COVID was a killer. COVID was literally a killer. It stopped the cooks from coming in and interacting with the patients, with the prisoners. People come and just drop their food and would leave. But now it's back open again, and people can decide whether they want to come and bring their food and spend their time at that. So with that, if there's no more questions, I thank you for inviting me today. And I did mention it was all one word, dismissofvt.org. If you go there, that's our webpage. It explains a lot, shows you how to donate, what programs we have up. We had a series of lectures that were on web-based about prisoners in society. We're open for any ideas, and if you're interested, you can contact that website or contact myself personally. I think my phone number is in the manual today, the little sheet today. With that, I thank you.